Hello, everybody. Hope that you're doing well. Welcome for another rendition of RT Test Tip Tuesday. Today, we'll take a peek at this particular question. It's going to go over some of the volumes. So I'd done a video last week that went over the lung volumes and/or the lung capacity. So hopefully, you had a chance to be able to see that. If not, we'll cover them again here. So let me pull up the annotation feature right quickly so that I can write on the screen, and we'll go ahead and get started. My artwork is not fantastic, so I'll try to spare you the normal spirogram. But nonetheless, if you're able to draw the normal spirogram and understand that spirogram, it may help with this. So this is saying that a patient presents, excuse me, with the following pulmonary function testing results. We're given the vital capacity, we're given the tidal volume, given a residual volume, as well as an inspiratory reserve volume. And the question is asking specifically for what is the patient's functional residual capacity. So we know that we've got four lung volumes and we have four capacities. I like to remember those mathematically. And what I mean by that, so for instance, we know that total lung capacity, or TLC, is the equivalent of inspiratory reserve volume plus our tidal volume plus our expiratory reserve volume plus our residual volume. We know that the vital capacity is inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume. We know that inspiratory capacity, inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume, and we know that functional residual capacity is expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume. So in understanding what volumes make up what capacities, it makes it a lot easier to tackle one of these types of questions. So for instance, if we're given that the vital capacity is 3.8 liters, then we know that those three volumes collectively make up or equal 3.8 liters per the question that we're given, 3.8 liters. Our tidal volume is 0.5 liters. This is good. The residual volume is 5 liters. Inspiratory reserve volume is 1.2 liters. The question is asking for what is the patient's FRC? What's their functional residual capacity? So we need to know what encompasses the functional residual capacity. So we listed them down here for you. So FRC is ERV plus RV. If we come up here, this question gives us that the residual volume is 5 liters. So if we were going to plug this into the equation, it's asking for what FRC is. We know that our residual volume is 5 liters. So we are left to determine what our expiratory reserve volume is. We're not given that information in the data set. However, we are given enough information to where we can figure that out. So we're given a vital capacity of 3.8. I'm going to write 3.8 right here. We're also given a tidal volume of 0.5 liters and an inspiratory reserve volume of 1.2 liters. So if you can remember that the vital capacity is equal to inspiratory reserve volume plus tidal volume plus ERV, that's going to give us the entire vital capacity. We're given a tidal volume, we're given an inspiratory reserve volume. The only thing lacking here is expiratory reserve volume. So if you take 3.8 and subtract from that our tidal volume, which is 0.5, that'll bring us up to what, 3.3? And then if we subtract from that also our inspiratory reserve volume, which is 1.2. Do the subtraction. 3 minus 2, obviously 1. Bring the decimal down. 3 minus 1 is 2. So that means our ERV is 2.1. Our ERV is equivalent to 2.1. So come down here and plug that in for ERV. If FRC is ERV plus or expiratory reserve volume plus residual volume, then functional residual capacity in this case is 2.1 plus 5, which ends up being our uh, being at, after you've gone through and done the math, D is the correct answer, 7.1. So 2.1, 5.0. So while it's a test tip, this is somewhat an example of an application question, but this application question requires some recall information. That recall information is the um, what volumes make up what capacities. And you might encounter something like this in class or what have you. So thought process here. And again, just as a reminder, this is RT Test Tip Tuesday. For those of you that are taking the TMC and the CSE, TMC, you've got 3 hours to take that test. So remember, that test is 160 questions with 140 questions scored for you or against you. There are 20 test items, but altogether 160 questions. So you have 3 hours to take the test. That's 180 minutes to take 160 questions. So you have just a little over a minute per question in order to be able to answer that. Once you score at the high cut score and are able to transition to your CSE exam, you've got 22 cases and 4 hours to take those in. So 22 case scenarios that you're going to go through. Two of those are again test items. So 20 of those are scored for you or scored against you, and you're scored on information gathering and decision making in the clinical simulation aspect of that. If you're studying for the TMC, don't feel like you're not studying for the CSC. Those content outlines are very similar to each other. Uh, so by studying for the TMC, you're also effectively studying for the CSE. With the CSC, I would encourage you to take some practice exams or what have you, because that is uh, it is an assessment of what you can, your decision making, your information gathering, but it's also kind of how to take that exam too as well. Because on the TMC, if I'm reading an answer choice here and I thought it was A, I thought the answer was A, and I changed my mind, I can unclick that and go to, once you get to that clinical simulation exam, if you happen to click, if it won't necessarily be a B, C, D or whatever, but you may have 1.7, 8.8 or whatever list there. Once you click something on the CSE, it is it is selected and ready, and it counts either for you or against you. So if it was something you shouldn't have clicked, then that will be points to come off the board. Anyway, I'll try to make a few more videos in the future, but nonetheless, this was a test tip I wanted to get over to you all today, and I'll probably finish up each test tip with just reminding you that 3 hours for the TMC, 180 minutes for 160 questions, 140 count for you, 20 of those are test items, and then 4 hours for the CSE, 22 cases, 20 of them count for you or against you, with two being test items. Thank you all for your time and attention. I hope that you have a great day.